Hello and greetings, and thank you so much for joining me here today. And thank you so much for choosing to be living on the planet right now at this amazing time we are now living in. Before I get into some of that stuff, I am making this video specifically right now in the beginning of 2019 because I'm about to be starting to make a lot of content. Some of which might be some high-level things that might not make sense to you right now, but I wanted to give you a backstory a bit on who I am, where I've come from, and what led me to where I'm at now today. Getting ready to make content that might seem fake, abnormal, mystical, unbelievable. But I assure you, you are a divine being. You are a spiritual, infinite being having a physical experience. And most of what we've been taught by schools, our parents, society, a lot of it is very limited in beliefs and limits the potential that we all have. And the more that I've come to discover about the real truths of humanity, our history, our potentials, and our divine purpose here on this planet, the more my mind expands and opens to new ideas, new possibilities, and I start tapping into something so magical and divine. And I really hope I can maybe shine some light on things that you're experiencing in your life, and just pique your interest to open up your beliefs, open up your thought process on what is possible, what is real. And yeah, really, I want to do anything I can to inspire you, to spark your divinity that's inside each and every single one of you, to awaken that divine seed, to get you to start awakening to your pre-agreements that you had already agreed upon before even coming to this planet now. So, let me get into a little bit of the backstory before I go deeper down that spiritual rabbit hole, which can be a bit overwhelming. So a little bit about me. I grew up with a very more nice, loving, normal family. I guess what's normal, but my father is from Thailand, and my father actually was a Buddhist priest in Thailand from the age of 5 till he was 18. He lived at the temple, and later on, after leaving the temple when he was 18, he soon after came to America, and apparently, I guess first when he came to America, he lived up more of the wild life, drinking, smoking, gambling, all that kind of stuff. And eventually, he opened and owned a restaurant in San Jose, California, and I guess he had a couple that would come in there all the time and talk to him and invite him to church. So, long story short, he ended up going to church, ended up quitting drinking, smoking, gambling, all that stuff, and gave his life to God, and went to Bible school, became a Christian minister, and since then he's been a Christian minister. And I grew up in a very religious household, obviously having a pastor as a father. There was a lot of times I wished I had a father because, I always had a father. My father was a great father. It's just sometimes when I wanted a little fatherly advice, it was always, more pastor advice, which was good, which was fine, which I'm so glad to have the parents that I had. And obviously I chose to have the parents that I had. And it was all for a purpose. But anyways, I remember going around even as a kid, traveling with my dad and going to churches, and they tell me, I remember some things and they tell me other things where apparently I'd go and walk up and put my hands on people and heal some of the sick, just with pure belief. And I remember during my life, my family, people would say, oh, maybe you'll grow up to be a pastor like your dad. And as I grew up, nothing against Christianity, but as I grew up, I had a lot of questions about things. I had questions about space, about humanity, about how long we've been here, and about all kinds of things, about heaven, hell, the list goes on. And a lot of my questions just couldn't be answered. I was told to just have faith, which obviously faith is a good thing, but I had too many questions that just weren't getting answered either by people in the church or by my parents or by the Bible. And when I was younger, I was always told, don't go study other religions because they're wrong, they'll lead you astray, don't look into spirituality, that's more witchcraft, those type of things. So I was always kind of feeling stuck. I believed obviously what I was being told, but I also had many questions. And there was points in my life where I was definitely a very rebellious child too, and I went through my own struggles and troubles and getting, So basically, when I was younger and finding out these things and really struggling with what's right, what's wrong, thinking, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the wrong thing? Is this sin? Am I going to heaven? Am I going to hell? All this that comes behind that kind of fear of eternal damnation, I guess you would say. And over time, I actually, when I was 15 or 16, I got certified to be a yoga instructor, and I started teaching yoga classes, started getting into meditation. I started studying a bit of Eastern philosophy, and it really intrigued me. Obviously, as a kid, I always asked my dad questions about Buddhism as well, and to try and find out more information in regards to that. And when I began teaching yoga, I started feeling this peace to me, that was the beginning of me starting to really search in deep within and go inwards for answers. And I mean, it can be a long story, so I'm not even going to get into my whole life. I'll save that for other content. But, so that was kind of the start of my more spiritual journey. And now fast forwarding, went through, my young adulthood. I had a child at a young age, which led me to really think about what I wanted to do with my life, who I wanted to be. I also started getting into personal development books at a young age because my dad gave me, I think the first book my dad gave me was How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, which was an amazing book, still one of my favorites. I've probably read it like 15 times and revisited every so often. So I was always really conscious about how I wanted to be, who I wanted to be, and started learning a lot of things on how to become the person I wanted to be. So that was kind of my start in really my journey of working on myself. So it began very more on a standard 3D level, you would say, on success, motivation, law of attraction, things like that. And over time, especially since 2012, which right before 2012, I went through a career change. I was living in Los Angeles and was a celebrity hairstylist out there, had a great career going for me that was just moving up. was on TV shows, had celebrity clients, got to travel to New York and all over the place for doing runway shows. It was fun. It was definitely, as a guy in the fashion industry, working around models, going to exciting events, it was a fun time. But at the same time, I also had this feeling inside of me that I had more to give to the world, one, put up the two fingers there, and two, I just felt like it was my time. I had already achieved what I set out to achieve as a hairstylist. I kind of reached all my goals and was ready for that next step, which my next step ended up getting into and doing digital marketing full-time for five years. Which was an exciting time in my life, which was the most business-driven I've ever been in my life. Before transitioning to that time, I always considered myself an artist since a young age. I started painting and taking art classes when I was 5 years old, so I've always been an artist. Started doing music at a young age, played many instruments, always knew I was a creative person. Although at a young age I started doing a lot of entrepreneurial things, all kinds of ways to make money, I didn't consider myself a businessman. Yet, I'm so glad I transitioned to that point of my life, getting into digital marketing, learning all the aspects of marketing, which is very essential in this day of age that we live in. It is a very powerful tool. And I went through a 5-year process of that where I dived deep into psychology, quantum physics, philosophy, all kinds of different things. I picked up a lot of mentors along the way, went through all of Tony Robbins' courses, went through all of Wayne Dyer's content, have been a follower of Gary Vaynerchuk for many years. Started listening to Lewis Howes' podcast, The School of Greatness, since the very first episode. And I really went through a lot of years of personal development. And slowly, actually this is what one of my mentors, Wayne Dyer, talked about in some of his stuff, is with his books that he was writing, just slowly, synchronistically, over time, and not purposefully, as his books went on, they got more and more spiritual. He talked more about God, the universe, infinite possibilities, being a no-limit person. And that's kind of how my content journey went, of learning and educating myself in a synchronistic way. I began on more personal development, which slowly just began getting more and more spiritual based. I went from, Tony Robbins to Wayne Dyer, and started learning about the Tao, and started learning about many things of our potential, our limitless abilities. So that led me to about 3 years ago. And 3 years ago, I started just getting far more into spiritual-based things. I was curious about religions. The first place I went was to study all of the scriptures that were removed out of the Bible, which are very key scriptures, and were removed for a reason at different points in history. So that's one thing I kind of struggled with the Bible, and being taught as a kid, the main only book you should be reading is the Bible, and the Bible is God's Word. But if you look at it logically, it's a book that's almost half missing. A lot of chapters have been removed out of the Bible. I do believe it is one of the most powerful books on the planet. It has a lot of good things to live a good life and be a good person. But a lot of the meat, a lot of the good stuff was removed out. A lot of Jesus's teachings that were so powerful, that were to really show you what he was trying to teach humanity at that time, which was raising consciousness, which was teaching you are a no-limit person, you are divine, you have endless potential, you are born in the image of God. Just as Jesus said, after he performed a multitude of miracles. Basically, I mean, he kind of went through and gave an example of some of the biggest miracles that could be performed by a human, right? Making a blind person see, turning water into wine, walking on water, raising a person from the dead, and as his last and final example of a miracle of what we all have the potential to do, raising himself from the dead and ascending in physical form. So just as Jesus said, you have the power to do all the things that I have done and even greater things. These words are some of the words in the Bible that have resonated the most with me. And that's really what intrigues me the most about Christianity, and really what Jesus' true message was, because I believe his message has been convoluted. I believe that he doesn't want us to be worshiping him or to believe that we are sinners and we are nothing and we are worthless without something exterior coming into us, as if we were not born divine and already have God in us. So there's just a few things that I kind of struggle with, but I love Christianity, of certain of those aspects of it. And just as with every religion, I've went through and studied all other major religions as well. There's so much truth within all the religions, but there's also a lot of humanized things, man-made things that have been put into these systems for a way of control, and that control might have been necessary at some point in humanity, but it is no longer necessary. And just as we are beings who evolve and everything evolves around us, so as I believe God is an evolving being, that he is not stagnant. So going back to kind of my journey, I started off really diving deep and learning all of the major religions, but looking and learning them in a logical standpoint, really just logically thinking and finding what resonated with me and finding the underlying tying things that really, the truths that were the same in all religions. And then I started diving deep into spirituality and really learning as much as I could about every aspect. And over the years, I have just been really finding the answers to a lot of the questions I've always had my entire life. A few years ago, I also became interested in becoming a Reiki healer. Not for the purpose of doing it as a profession to become a healer and charge money for it. More for the reason of unlocking those abilities in me, getting my attunements, which open up my energy centers and are a permanent opening of pulling in more divine energy into my being. That was something that was highly appealing to me, as well as, yes, I would love the ability to be able to heal someone that is sick, that is in need, that is hurting. Not for the purpose of, like I said, not for the purpose of making money from it, although I don't look at people that are healers, that are practitioners, that use it as a profession. I do not look down upon that. Just with me, myself, I feel like I want to do it for other reasons. So this year actually, I finally became a Reiki master, an Usui Reiki master. And I also just in the last weeks did training for Lumerian light healing and Atlantean Reiki, which, wow, I would say in the last 3 weeks I have learned more information and had more aha moments than I've had in the past 5 years. My energy has increased tenfold. My presence within each day, that's one of the things that I discovered to find the most power and the most change, was learning to be present in the moment, in a state of flow, not thinking about yesterday, not thinking about years before, not thinking about tomorrow, being in the now. That is where I've found to find the most bliss, the most ecstasy, the most beauty around me, the biggest drive, the biggest motivation, and the greatest use of my cognitive abilities in those moments, because I get into this state of flow where I don't even have to think. It just flows out of me. The answer flows out of me. And that's really another thing that I have been working on this past year, and exercising my intuitive abilities, which I believe is our fifth sense. Something that I think is going to start awakening in a lot of people. You can call this your conscious, you can call this whatever. A lot of people are so busy in their minds so convoluted with thoughts, with what they need to do, that you're not even getting these messages. But as soon as you start tuning in, you're aware to your higher self, your intuition, and you actually listen and you follow your intuition in this just divine, trusting, synchronistic way, and you start looking for magic, magic will happen. Magic will come. And I see it more and more each day in my life, that the more I'm in tune to living in a synchronistic way, the more synchronistic things happen in my life. A movie I would highly recommend watching at some point is The Celestine Prophecy, which is derived from James Redfield's books. And it's a very powerful movie in regards to living synchronistically and letting your divine plan unfold. So definitely check that out. And just kind of to wrap this all up, so yeah, I am gonna start teaching a lot of stuff that you guys can apply in your lives, that can really start opening up your divine possibilities, becoming a no-limit person. I've been studying health, nutrition, herbology, aromatherapy, a multitude of healing modalities, as well as I've been training recently under a Taoist inner alchemy master and a Siddha Veda master, who I am learning so many applicable things that you can put to use in your life and really start just seeing massive results, both in your energy, in your happiness, in your peace of being, in your creative flow, and in your everyday life. So I just wanted to give this kind of little backstory on myself, so you can kind of have an idea of where I'm coming from when I start making this content I'm about to be releasing. I'm also about to be launching and releasing a music album called Shaping the Future, which is going to be an album that I think will have a massive impact on the planet, to both awaken people and get people on the wavelength of change, and to create a brighter future for all of humanity. Not an us-them thing. I really believe that we need to start coming together and uniting as one humanity under the sun. I really hope that we can come together and look aside our differences and look at what unites us all, how we really are all one. It doesn't matter what race we are, what faith we have. If we can start tying together and looking at what we have that unites us all, and accepting each other for our differences, because that's what makes us humanity. Why would we want everyone to be the same, right? Whatever's working for someone at their point in the journey, that's awesome, that's good. And I love you and accept you for who you are right now, where you are right now. So I love you all. Thank you so much for listening. And I welcome you to join me on this journey of self-exploration and in unlocking our true human potential and becoming the divine beings that we were meant to be. I love you all. Thank you so much.